It's time to mark the start of a new era for your iRacing IndyCar community. For years, drivers have visited virtual Indiana with the hope of drinking the milk and etching their name into the virtual history books. But today, the newest iteration of Indianapolis hits the iRacing service, and we welcome you to Monday Night IndyCars live on RaceSpotTV as the top talent in your community gets ready to hit the track. Hello everyone, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. As always, delighted to be joined by the one and only Andrew Kinsella. Remember, live timing and scoring powered by our partners at Timing 71 is available at RaceSpot.wtf/Indy. And Andrew, what a day it is. Unusual day in some ways. It's not normal that iRacing will deliver updates on a Monday morning, but with the upcoming doubleheader, NASCAR in Indianapolis heading to the Speedway, it was ripe for a new road course configuration to be welcome to iRacing. We see what it will be faring out like here tonight.
What a day it is to be an IndyCar fan on iRacing. We have some new tracks, or a new track to play with, and it is our hallowed grounds right now, Arjuna. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway has finally got the current road course on it, and I am so excited to see what these drivers do here today. As you say, less than 12 hours of notice for these drivers to start getting set up together and really get the cars tuned up. So the fun thing about this, I think, is going to be that everyone is going to be starting from scratch here. Everybody's got to find that speed, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see what these drivers have come up with.
Yeah, that talking point, right? This is always the first race of a new iRacing week, so the preparation builds to today. There's no prior knowledge of what other teams, other drivers have in store. The wheels of time have been working this last day, with some drivers able to develop the setups and understand the balance of the car and what needs to go on around the track just that little bit more. Let's talk to you, though, about the schedule as we run our way into the second half of this 2022 Season 3 campaign. We stay inside of America, and with the exception of our Charlotte trip in 7 days' time, it's all about staples for American open wheel racing. 40 laps today will build, of course, to the flip-flop of oval and road courses to run us to the end of the season. Looking forward though, Andrew, Charlotte bound to be difficult. From there we go to a run of tracks that we've been to many times before.
Yeah, Charlotte is the narrowest of the 1.5 mile sort of cookie cutter NASCAR tracks, and it really is a difficult challenge here in this IndyCar. But as you say, I'm really looking forward to those final four races: Sonoma, Gateway, Pocono, Watkins Glen. Some real classic IndyCar tracks, as you say, and it's a great way to end up this season.
Talk to you then about the championship points. A week away from drop weeks being factored in. 12 rounds of the championship. Your top 8 point scores will count towards the championship standings. But Brandon Traynor, after the record points haul in Season 2 of 2022, continues in that fine vein of form. Almost more than 200 points clear of David Porcelli. Just 5 points will split Christian Steele from Connor Harrington. No Steele out on track today will enable Connor Harrington, who's always quick when he comes here to the Brickyard, to maybe leapfrog him in the battle for third. 6 points splits Ike and Craig as well. Plenty of fun fights to be looking at, and some new faces that I'm sure we'll see today because of the significance that it will take to the drivers and to the teams. And Andrew, when we look at this new facility, we talked about this a bit before we went live, the changing configuration, no more focus and iteration on the long sweeping corners. As you put it, they are point and squirt now.
Yeah, it absolutely changes the whole character of this racetrack, and it really opens up some new passing opportunities, particularly at the end of Holman Boulevard on the back straightaway. That corner no longer a sweeping left-hander. Instead of a 90-degree left-hand turn where you really have an opportunity to get under the brakes, and then you don't use Indianapolis turn 1 anymore for your final corner. Instead it's a complex that really forces you to nail that final complex in order to get a good run onto the front straightaway.
And with just under 2 minutes left to go on the qualifying clock, drivers get 8 minutes, 2 laps, and the track all to themselves. Already some major talking points to be bringing your attention to. Adam Blocker, John Bodefor, and Alexander Van der Sant, 3 drivers very capable on road courses, yet to put in lap times, and will not be putting in lap times, with all 3 drivers burning through their attempts. We still wait for Philip Kraus to potentially become the 19th car with a lap time on the board, but it is your king of the bricks, the man that seems to have found what he needs to do in qualifying, that sits on top, Brandon Traynor. 2/10 clear of Hugo Olsen returning on a Monday night.
Yeah, great to see Hugo back here on a Monday night. Of course, The Swede doesn't necessarily always have the time late on a Monday evening to come out and play, but I think he made an exception here for this special event. And as you say, I think the setup troubles are starting to manifest even in qualifying. As you can see, Bodefor, Blocker, Van de Sant just weren't able to put together a time, and Kraus is struggling to put together a representative time as well. So I think everybody's going to be right on the edge of grip here and right on the edge of the capability, simply because they didn't have the time to really dial in those setups.
I think Kraus isn't going to put a lap time in, I'm not sure. Oh, never mind, there he goes. I was confused by where he was on the track map. Kraus will jump to second. Should be a front fight between Traino and Kraus if things proceed as they are. So 19 cars lap times on the board in the field of 22 that will get ready to go in a couple of moments' time, with just 20 seconds left to go in this qualifying. In terms of setup, Andrew, what's the major thing that drivers would have focused on in the limited time they had today?
I think number one is just figuring out the downforce level. This was traditionally a track where you could trim a fair bit of downforce off the rear of the car. And then now you really, I think, have to look more towards that high downforce just to be able to make the car turn in some of these corners, because it is so much tighter here. And then, of course, you need to, once you get that downforce setting right, you need to dial in those springs to really make sure that you can still make the car work in some of the other corners as well.
There's a lot of things that have changed, but one thing that hasn't is there's a full pace lap for drivers to build temperature into their tires to get steeled for the 40 laps that lie ahead of them as we get past the halfway mark of 2022 Season 3 in your iRacing IndyCar Open Series. Let's dial you through the starting grid here in Speedway, Indiana, where Brandon Traino will get back to the front of the field after 2 rounds where Christopher Demerit pipped Brandon Traino to the pole. This time he'll lead us to the green, a 109.844. Good enough for pole position. Phil Kraus alongside him, a 10th off the pace for the private label Team Hype Pink and Black machine, with Hugo Olsen inside of Connor Harrington for Powerslide and private label Team Hype. Mitchell Welker's got some new colors on the car, but is looking to push at a track he seems quite comfortable at, half a second off Traino, though in front of Graham Saunders in the Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing number 1 Dallara IR18. Second in the championship, but 7th on the track. David Porcelli has some work to do, with another of the Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing machines joining the party, with Austin Young 9/10 back in 8th. Brian Carey, Brody Gardner make up the rest of the top 10. Rashad Craig in 11th, while Jacob Oster, the final of the 22 cars in terms of I rating, but 12th on the grid in the Team I5G with Apex Racing Team Green and Gold. Kevin Burrell and Jack Mara row 7, with Michael Chayton rolling from 15th and Vilda Wallen from 16th in the number 20 car. Rodrigo Franzoni, the final car with a lap time on the board, will be in front of Zachary Hubler on row number 9. Behind them, Benjamin Kopke, Adam Blocker, and John Bodefor and Alexander Van de Sant. 3 drivers with plenty of pace, with some work to do as well. Let's not forget that we've got tyre strategy that will play itself out, with drivers required to use 2 compounds of tyres. The red alternate tyre will be softer and preferred for shorter runs, but it will wear very fast depending on your track conditions. The black primary tire will last a little bit longer, a bit more durable but harder, will not bite into the surface of the track to the same degree as that alternate tire will. They begin to roll, and we mentioned weather conditions, and Andrew, let's talk about them. It's quite cool with plenty of cloud cover as we work into the evening here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah, just about perfect conditions for racing though, Arjun. A low wind and low track temperature means a ton of grip, and it'll also mean that tire strategy that you mentioned, not only do they have to figure out, but they have to figure it out on the fly here. No real prior knowledge of what's going to be fast in the long run for these drivers at this particular configuration. So that's going to be another wrinkle here, and I think that's manifested in the tire choices. We're about evenly split. Red versus black tires, maybe a few more drivers on the black compared to the red tires to start this race, but throughout the field there seems to be no real consensus on which is better to start on.
Now historically we have seen that if you're towards the front, you very much want to start on the reds. You get bogged down on the initial launches. Adam Blocker found that out to his chagrin a couple of times, although made it work at some of the tracks as well. So we'll see the balance of the tires. Top 4 on the red alternate tires, and then, like Andrew said, basically split back and forth down through almost 12th positions. From there, the majority on down will start on the primary tire, including the trio of Blocker, Bodefor, and Van de Sant that we will look to work their way forward. to push themselves to the front. Of course, this back straightaway is that first significant change compared to the old configuration. You jink left to a chicane instead of right through the double hairpin, and then into the second half of the lap where there's a couple more passing opportunities, but crucially some different curbing, some of it flat, some quite raised from the ground.
Yeah, and that particular corner that you just saw them going through, that's got a big curb on that inside there that's going to be very difficult if you hit it wrong. But these corners in here, this is one of the parts that I'm really excited about is that sequence of corners. It's gotten the proper reprofiling. It should be a lot faster through there, a lot more exciting, and it should set up well for another passing opportunity coming into the final complex.
And let's be honest, this is a partial release. It's half of what the community wants. We have the road course, but as we build towards the month of November and the open wheels 500-mile race, it's the oval that all the drivers are excited about. But this is that first step, Andrew. The first chance for drivers to get a competitive look at this Indianapolis Motor Speedway new road course configuration.
Absolutely, and I think all the drivers definitely love that they've got the road course, but as you say, they've got one eye on that oval as well.
A doubleheader of action this weekend in the real world. NASCAR and IndyCar head to Speedway, Indiana. Today, though, we celebrate the start of the next generation of IndyCar competition on iRacing. Brandon Traino gets us underway at the brand new Indianapolis. Great start from Traino, leaves Kraus to defend from Hugo Olsen, who will look down to the inside. All three of the top three on the push to pass as they fly down into the first heavy braking zone. Kraus a little bit wide, but slides into second and holds his spot. One of the Alpine Stars geodesic racing machine trying to work on the back of Mitchell Welker, but all our cars nice and tidily work through the first couple of corners to the first change on the track.
Really strong start there from the Alpine Stars geodesic racing drivers. I believe that was Austin Young. A really good start there. But as you say, Kraus was just a little bit too deep into that corner, got crowded out just a little bit on that exit by Traino, but overall, really nice clean start from everyone in this field. So great to see a good first lap getting in the books here at this track.
And now to the second major differentiator, hard on the brakes and turning right will go the drivers. Kraus just 3/10 back from Traino, not going to let him run away. We'll see what the different downforce trims are going to be as well. One of our major talking points every time we come to this particular road course is how much downforce can you trim off the top, how much top speed are you willing to build into your machine. Barney has a great view of some side-by-side with Austin Young and David Porcelli fighting for 7th position at single file in front of them. Porcelli will try and defend around the outside. Young wants to make 7th position his. Will get it done. Porcelli can't fight.
And you can see just how tight it is through that first sequence of corners. With Porcelli still, he's struggling just a little bit. I think he's on the black primary tires, if I've got that correct there. And I think that he's just struggling a little bit for grip at this point. In the black tires, as you know, they just don't fire up as well. And he's falling back through this field now with Garner trying to make that position at the end of the Holman Boulevard there.
It's what we said earlier. It's getting bogged down at the start can put you in a difficult position track-wise, when we often talk about just how important track position can be. I think Rodrigo Franzoni has just had a moment where he's gone off the track. Maybe Hubler and Kopke getting mixed up in that because they've dropped back. Adam Blocker has only worked his way forward to 17th. Bodeful 1 spot behind him for the time being. Van der Sant tries to work on Hubler. Not going to get it done. He's not being as clinical as he would have wanted to be, that number 15 machine. A long way to go. 14 seconds back from your race leader. 2 laps in the book. Phil Kraus has a look.
You can definitely see that Phil Kraus, Hugo Olsen not letting Brandon Traino get away very much here. And in fact, the top 5 are really still very close together with Harrington and Sanders really close behind as well. So close action here in these opening few laps. And Van der Sant, the reason he was dropping down the order there, he had a little bit of a slowdown penalty that he had to get cleared. And I think one of the things that you also have to get used to on a new track is just how much you have to slow down for new slowdown penalties.
Yeah, the limits have changed, right? And even real-world motorsports coming off of a couple of weekends in Formula One where track limits have been the hot-button topic. Something that drivers will experiment with as we get more and more accustomed to this road course configuration. Let's go ahead and grab a look at not an incident involving a crash, but a pass for Graham Sanders working past Mitchell Welker. Initially gets it done almost through turn 3, but side by side into the chicane. Some compromise had to be reached. It was Welker that backed out of that one, did not force the issue. Nice tidy driving from all of them. Again, tower lit up like a Christmas tree. Brandon Traino defends to the inside using the push to pass, will slam the door shut, but you can see Traino is not being allowed to run away, maybe running a bit more downforce than Kraus behind.
Yeah, Kraus all over the back of Brandon Traino here. So much pressure being applied to your Indy 500 king here, and man, if you're Brandon Traino, you got to be thinking, I need to get just a little bit of a breather here. But Kraus looking to the inside once again. Hugo Olsen, he's just in the catbird seat, just waiting to see what happens here and hoping to take advantage, because honestly, I think he's in the best position because he's not going to be using up his tires nearly as bad as Traino and Kraus are right now.
The more they fight, the more it lets someone like Olsen, Harrington, or even Sanders, who has caught up to the back of this train, breaking away from Welker, to save the tires and save fuel as well. We don't know what the fuel numbers really are going to be in a race sense once drivers start pushing that little bit more, getting into that rhythm. They sweep through the final corner once more, back onto main straight here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 4 laps will be in the books with the top 5 split by just under 1.9 seconds. It is very much anyone's game. The cars 4th through 6th yet to use any of their allotted push to passes. Again, left side of the screen. Look at the tire compounds. All of the top 5 are on the alternate compound tire. Welker's doing a pretty good job, Andrew, all things considered, to hang on with the blacks.
He's definitely keeping up with the alternate tires really well, and that's going to serve him well later on in this stint, later on in this race, where you have to pay the piper and the red tires will start to fall off that cliff. Welker will be able to pick people off at that point. So the closer that he can remain through this opening phase, the better off he's going to look come the end of this race. But he's under a lot of pressure right now from Austin Young in that second Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing Team car.
And we should say we expect it to be a one-stop race based on what we've seen in the past, but never say never with these open races, especially when our lap counts now might slightly be off, given that we have changed this layout. And could be a 2-stop if you want to be brave, although let's be real, it's unlikely to be. Still waiting for Blocker, Beaudefort, Van der Sande to make any sort of significant headway. Still stuck down in 17th spot and looking to try and make an impact. Of course, they started on the blacks, but it's always difficult when you put yourself out of position. I don't mean to throw you under the bus, Andrew, but that's something you know all too well.
Yeah, I have some experience with qualifying poorly and trying to work my way through up through a field. Did that at Mosport a few weeks ago in the Lionheart Series, as we see Van der Sande making a move. I believe that was on Rodrigo Franzoni into turn 1 there, so move up Van der Sande one more position onto the back of John Beaudefort again. But yeah, it's one of those things where it just makes your life more difficult. It is more fun to race and pass a lot of people, but it's not necessarily the best for the results column come the end of the race.
Well, Beaudefort is inside of the top 10 as he will slide on past Kevin Birrell, who is also of note in the top 10 in points. Blocker, of course, with his real-world commitment, NTT IndyCar Series engineer as part of Ilmo, working on the Juncos Hollinger car of Callum Ilott, so we will forgive him for missing a couple of weeks as they go through a busy time in their racing schedule. Blocker makes the mistake, locks up. Now Beaudefort will get on through. Birrell will try and slide too, but Blocker able to recover and get back into line. That was an uncharacteristic mistake. It shows everyone is struggling to get to grips and get up to speed with this track.
Absolutely it does, and I think that goes to show just a little bit of rust on Adam Blocker's part as well. He hasn't been in the car nearly as much as he normally is, and when that happens, one of the hardest things to do is really modulate the car on the brakes, and that's what happened with Blocker there. Is he just locked the tires up just a little bit, carried too much speed into the corner, and did well to only lose the one position of John Beaudefort there.
You can see the left. That's where the old configuration used to be. It's not like that part of the track is gone. They still use it for some of the longer endurance races, the SRO races, for example. I'll be curious with rumors circulating about a potential visit from the IMSA paddock in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, which layout they would use. Maybe more news coming from the world of IMSA this coming August at their State of the Sport event during their weekend at Road America. Did see this comment coming from Doug South, was something I wanted to shout out as well when we got the opportunity to. The new colors gone are the blue and teal, yellow, colors for Mitchell Welker, instead the black and white, as he supports the Open Medicine Foundation on his car driving research of myalgic encephalomyelitis / chronic fatigue syndrome. Let's be honest, the second one much easier for a medical noob to say, and as well the post-treatment of Lyme disease syndrome, fibromyalgia, and long COVID. So new colors for the number 14. It's always good to see. While we don't see much battling at the front of the field just yet, I think the pit stop window is going to intensify it. Let's have a look at a moment for Rodrigo Franzoni. This was quite a while ago, before Blocker had got on past, and just into the heavy braking zone at the end of the back straightaway, he makes a mistake. Van der Sant does as well.
Yes, and that's where Van der Sant got that slowdown penalty early that cost him so dearly. So, yeah, it's just one of those cases where when you're at a new track, you really need to be certain of your braking markers. You need to be certain of what you're doing. And early on in this race, a lot of uncertainty will happen with these drivers. They're just feeling the track out, feeling the car out. And then for many of these drivers, this will likely be their first really sort of long stint. So now they're also feeling out the tires and how they're performing over the course of a longer run now.
Oop, Jack Maurer off into the green stuff. We found out this weekend that maybe it is where you want to be, but I don't think Maurer intentionally put himself there, that's for sure. Top two are starting to break and build some separation. 8/10 back to Hugo Olsen, feeling the pressure from Connor Harrington and Graham Sanders. Maybe as we work to the end of lap 9, we'll see the crossover point. Mitchell Welker's last lap time, a 1:12.472 compared to a 1:12.368 for Brandon Traino. Looking good for that 14 car as he holds onto the tires, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. We're probably maybe a lap or two away from that crossover point that you mentioned at the end. I think that once you see that, Mitchell Welker's going to start rocketing back up to the back of Graham Sanders, because as we know, the red tires here and at every IndyCar track, once they start to go, it's very hard to keep them under you, very hard to keep the pace up. So I think that it's going to get very interesting here on the back half of this stint, seeing what Mitchell Welker can do with those black primary tires.
I tell you what, let's have a look around a full lap here at this brand new Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course configuration. I say new, but it's something we've seen in the real world for a long time. Into turn 1, not much has changed. The main thing that really has changed is A, kind of the radius of the corner, but B, the curb to the inside. Kraus avoids it, works through turn 2 nice and tidy as Porcelli and Garner will fight for 8th and 9th. Through turn 4, again, not much different for your drivers as they sweep through. This is where, as they hook left through the chicane, that things get different. You've got to be careful on the right side of the chicane. Not as much danger as there was 12 months ago for your NASCAR cars, but you can still launch yourself up and into the air. Hard on the brakes, and Kraus works through turn 7, a 90-degree left that builds you up into the right, then left, that sweeps you towards the final sector of the lap. It's all about patience here and throttle modulation, knowing when you can get on the power, knowing when the rear end is stable as you power out of turn 11 is crucial, but immediately restrain yourself onto the anchors for turn 12. Hook the right and build into the final corner. Off to the right is pit entry, to the left goes the racing line. A lot tighter a radius as you sweep back onto the banking compared to what we used to be running. That's a lap at this new road course configuration, Andrew. For the drivers, I think it's going to have to take some adjustment given how long they've been waiting for this day.
Yeah, absolutely. And the key to that is that because, as you say, some parts are the same, some parts are different, it actually is a little bit more jarring in this case than learning a completely new track, because you sort of can find yourself getting back into your old rhythm and then suddenly, oh, this track goes left when it should have gone right here. So you can find yourself using some of your old muscle memory in the wrong spots, and you can easily find yourself in trouble because of that. And we had a little bit of an incident there that looked like Vildewallen through turn 1.
Yeah, that doesn't look like the optimal place to be trying to rejoin. We see the Indy Alliance Racing, Three Crowns Racing colors for her. Let's see what happened to one of the Indy Alliance Racing cars, Rashard Craig. Been a couple of tough weeks for him, just pushing the limit too much as he came around to turn 4. Touch of the left side tires into the grass, and around she goes for Rashard Craig.
Yeah, and I will say one thing that they haven't changed here is the berms that you get beside the sand traps here, which can easily catch out a driver if you can easily get beached on one of those berms. So it's good that Rashad Craig didn't have that happen to them. Meanwhile, at the front, Brandon Traynor and Philip Kraus both on the push to pass. Kraus looking towards the outside into one.
Kraus still doesn't have enough top-end speed, and while slamming the door shut is going to be Philip Kraus, whose teammate tries to get past Hugo Olsen. The Swede has none of it. Harrington almost loses control. They slip back now 2 full seconds from the top 2 cars. Does look as though those private label team hype machines a little bit more trimmed out than those they're trying to pass.
But I will also say, Arjuna, though, that the private label team hype drivers definitely look like they're taking care of the tires very well. So I don't know if they're necessarily extremely trimmed out, as Hugo Olsen gets very deep into the corner there. And Harrington alongside him, it might just be Harrington's corner, but it's going to be right for Hugo Olsen, and I think he's just about defended it.
It opens the door for Graham Saunders to sling it down the inside into turn 12 on Connor Harrington. New passing opportunities presented to these drivers. They need no second invitation. Harrington pushed into the grass, holds on to the spot. Welker closes up as well. The black primary tires swinging in the direction of the number 14. It's now a 2-horse fight up front, a 4-car brawl for third.
All of that fighting has cost Hugo Olsen and company a full 2.5 seconds on that lap there, Arjuna. They were within about a second of Philip Kraus, now almost 3 seconds back of the back end of Kraus. So really, really tough lap for them, but it was a lot of defending, and Mitchell Welker looking to capitalize here.
Brian Carey, Jacob Oster swap around for 10th and 11th spots. Brian Carey lost a couple of spots on the start, trying to get back up to 9th where he saw the green flag. Still looking at Phil Kraus, hot on the heels of Brandon Traynor on lap 13 of 40. Would not be completely shocked if we saw something attempted in the pit stop cycle. Maybe even Phil Kraus trying to take out a little bit of wing, try and get a bit more speed in towards turn number 1, because again, as they run into this final section, you can see Kraus has got a little bit more turn, a little bit more free and able to commit, but it's out of here that the gap will start to build no matter what Kraus will try to do. Again, the top 2 both on the button, 70 extra horsepower pushing them into turn 1. Kraus tucked up in the draft, Traynor covering the inside, Kraus with nowhere to go.
But he makes Traynor go in deep, and now he's going around the outside here. But Kraus just can't make it stick along the outside of Traynor. Traynor does just enough to be able to defend that off, but Kraus, I think he learned from the last couple of times, and he really tried the switch back there, and it almost worked. Meanwhile, Connor Harrington still working over the back of Hugo Olsen, with John Bodefer waiting in the wings, and Mitchell Welker just in the popcorn position watching this whole battle, looking to capitalize on those primary tires.
Mitchell Welker has just used his first push to passes of the race. He's been banking them, knowing the time would swing in his direction. Still no changes in this battle for third, but they're costing themselves time hand over fist, not just to the leaders. David Porcelli is closing the gap to this group of 4 that continue to scrap for third. As much fun as it is to see, the reality is it's not working out in the direction that they would want it to go, not even halfway through this race. And befalling any difficulties for Traynor or Kraus, those 4 no chance of fighting for the win. Blocker and Bodefor have swapped around, but working slowly now to 12th and 13th position. No change for the lead. The battle for third powers to turn number 1.
And I would say that those Power Slide Motorsports drivers, they're just not really doing or not really able to keep those red tires under them. Any of the drivers, I think you're just finding that their setup isn't conducive to the long run here, and that's what's allowing the likes of Connor Harrington to really start to pressure them the way he's doing for Hugo Olsen. But you can see just how much faster that sequence of corner is compared to the old slow sweeping section, and it really allows the drivers to get onto the gas and through that straight. But look at how much Hugo Olsen is struggling for grip there, Arjuna.
Those rear tires just don't have much left to give as he tries to squeeze onto the power. The rear end looking to step out from him at every opportunity. John Bodefor off the track down at turn 7. He'll power it up and slot behind Kevin Burrell. The recovery drive takes yet another hit. Bodefor behind both Blocker and Van de Sant for the time being. Welker looking very feisty, but still struggling to find a way past Graham Sanders. We talked about how changes were going to be needed to configure your car for the slower corners, maybe adding downforce. It does seem as though we are getting locked at the limiter and drivers unable to make moves stick. Around the outside will look Harrington and Welker. Harrington will bully his way on through. Welker will try and do 2 in 1, and the black tires might just stick enough. Welker compromises, will get past on Graham Sanders, still trying to fight the long way around on Hugo Olsen. What fight from the two of them, but it comes to tears. Welker and Olsen blow up through the chicane at turns 5 and 6.
Yeah, that was a lot of fighting there from Mitchell Welker, and I think he just saw the opportunity and tried to seize it, but Hugo Olsen was not letting him off easy, and it all comes to blows coming into that chicane. Unfortunately, both of those drivers are worse for wear, and they fall well down the order. Now Olsen 8th, Welker 9th, but just I think really hard racing there, and something has to give coming into that chicane, and this is part of the process of learning a new track, is learning where you have to give and take, and I think that is a hard lesson for both of them.
Well, F's in chat, unfortunately. Don't think either driver did much wrong. There was a healthy dose of air between the two of them, but Welker was quite clearly losing time that he didn't want to lose. His black primary tires much better at that stage of the run, and unfortunately for both of them, they now find themselves a full 7 seconds back from Connor Harrington, who will scoop up the final step on the podium. Welker will commit down the inside. Olsen doesn't fight this one too hard. Welker recovers 8th position, at least for the time being. With that happening, there were a couple of other things that we did want to go and take a quick look at. So as I think it settles down on track for now, still waiting for anything major to happen at the very front of your field. Let's turn the attention to the all-seeing RaceSpotTV replay machine and pick up a couple of moments. Let's start with Jack Mara, who at that new section, 12, 13, and 14, makes an absolute mess of it, commits too much under the brakes and then slides wide. And I believe potentially did it again, but what we really want to see is what happened to Vilda Wallen, because we didn't see this. So into turn 1 with the 3 car behind her, so that would be John Bodefer, who was on the charge, of course, at the time. Just locks the rears, maybe a little bit too much rear bias.
Yeah, it absolutely looks like too much rear bias there. The rears just locked up, as you say, and around she went. Unfortunate there, and then Ben Kopke on the replay. That was a bigger incident there. He just straight up locked the front tires through that gravel trap, and that's going to be a big issue for him. Meanwhile, Austin Young, this just happened here. Made a big mistake coming out at the end of the Holman Straight there.
That actually was the John Bodefer moment. A couple of things that we've kind of let cycle through, and that was a better look at it as well, as he just locks the left front, overcommits. Now let's get to the one that I think will have the talk of the town. You saw just how much air there was between them. Not much Olsen can do once he was spun around, mounted up on the curb and in the air. But it was getting more and more physical as they went. It seemed like there was a tipping point that was yet to be reached.
It absolutely did, and you could tell that the drivers behind Olsen were getting more and more desperate as they were losing time hand over fist to the cars in front. And like Welker was there, I don't blame him for sticking that out, but at the same time, you really can't fit 2 cars through that sequence of corners there. So I think it was just an unfortunate incident that can happen there. Meanwhile, back at the front, Philip Kraus all over the back of Brandon Trano here.
Well, the pit window is technically open, and Hugo Olsen will get rid of those tires and switch over to the primary compound to get, to the alternate compound and get him through to the rest of the race. I think I flip-flopped myself around there and completely confused. Here comes the fight, though, from Phil Kraus, trying to catch Brandon Trano napping. The two of them banging wheels with one another on the run down the back straightaway. Trano will slam the door shut, but it's getting more and more physical. You can tell there's some priors. You go back to the month of May when these two had their drama.
Yeah, you can absolutely tell that there's some history between these drivers. Brandon Trano not giving an inch to Phil Kraus, but Phil Kraus in return not willing to be intimidated by the 4-time Indy 500 champion Brandon Trano. Meanwhile, Trano into the pits this time by. That's going to release Phil Kraus. This is really interesting here because I think that the undercut will work a little bit of a treat for Brandon Trano given how much these tires are falling off. But you have cold black tires coming on, and then Phil Krause has got to find a way to make a really good lap here in order to try and leapfrog Brandon Traino. So this is going to be some very interesting stuff come the end of this lap.
1:14 flat for Phil Krause. Lost some time with that battle with Traino. Now we track the progress of him relative to the pole position man that has brought it down to pit lane. See how it goes for him. Porcelli on the black mark tire has done a pretty good job to be able to work his way forward. Maybe lost some ground, of course, at the start when he was swarmed, but it's come back in his direction, has hunted down Graham Saunders, and of course they will flip-flop on the tires. Black primary tires go onto the Alpine Stars geodesic racing machine. The red alternates onto the VRS satellite racing car. Let's see exactly what will play out there, as Brian Carey, I think, might have just let his teammate go through. Maybe even had a slowdown penalty because he's lost a bunch of time on this lap. So Brandon Traino, our first indication of what pit delta, is going to be from cone to cone, Andrew, about 52.5 seconds.
Yeah, it's always one of the more painful pit roads here. As you say, 52 seconds, that's such a long time to be on the pit limiter, because you do have basically that full line. And as you see the replay of what happened with Krause and Traino there, they were really close to disaster there, Arjun.
I heard contact. I didn't realize how significant it was, unfortunately. But I do think the call from Krause to not go early to provoke a response from Traino might gift the King of the Bricks the opportunity to lead here at the Brickyard once more. Porcelli will inherit the race lead for the time being, but as Brandon Traino comes through the final corner back up to speed, Krause will drop from the jacks, 4 tires, fresh tank of fuel in that car, and now a longer wait before he gets to the pit limiter line. The green cone is when Krause will commit and get back up to speed, but Brandon Traino is already gone and has his tires up to temperature.
Yeah, but it was a little bit closer than we think, because we do have the new pit exit. That was one of the other things that got updated, is that pit exit that allows you to short circuit turn 1 there, and it's allowed Phil Krause to come out right on the back of Brandon Traino. So this battle far from over here. I think that we are just going to see a resumption of the festivities here once Phil Krause's tires get back up to temperature.
Don't forget, lap traffic might play its part as well. Phil Krause has burned an additional push to pass compared to Traino, although in the cycle of pit stops it swung back around. Brandon Traino has burned through 7 of the 10 that he's allowed. Phil Krause has 1 left to use, additional compared to Traino. Is that going to be the determining factor of this race, as Porcelli, Van der Sant, Chaitin, Franzoni, and Mara will all dive down to pit road? Just leaves Blocker, Carey, Bodeful, Burrell, and Craig. The cars yet to come down on towards pit lane. As they come into turn 1, Phil Krause is only marginally faster at top speed levels at the very entry of the braking zone. I saw about 294 for Krause, about 290 for Traino. Does indicate to me that he's a little bit more dialed in for the slower speed part of the track, Andrew, struggling to try and get the top end grunt, which is why the back straight might be the place he gets it done.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely seems like the private label team, Hype Team Talent car is just stronger overall in the corners. It has better grip, and it just seems like a better balance than what the i5G car Brandon Traino in front has, and it's just allowing him to really maximize the corners. But as you say, he just doesn't seem to have that straight lines advantage in order to actually make that run happen on the front straight. So I would agree with you. Back straight away, if I'm Phil Krause, that's where I'm going to try and make that move.
The field comes in. Blocker leads. The 5 yet to box as they'll swap to the alternate tire, the softer compound for the rest of the race. It will release Traino back to the front of the field. Phil Krause still chasing him down. There is a fight brewing for the final step of the podium. David Porcelli had just come out of pit road with fresh alternates on his car. He's going to have to make use of them while he can, because the duo in front of Connor Harrington and Graham Saunders will very much be looking to leave him in their tracks and make sure the alternate tires do not have the opportunity to try and make something happen. As Blocker releases himself from the pit lane limiter, he's going to emerge right behind a pack of teammates and a pack of fighting. That will be something that Blocker will want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Hugo Olsen and Mitchell Welker resuming their pleasantries as well, with Welker just getting around Hugo Olsen there coming out of the pits. But right now it's Blocker and Van de Sant. Van de Sant was actually able to leapfrog Blocker through that pit cycle because he was able to come out on the red alternate tires and get a really solid lap in. So we've got a lot of battling right in front of these Power Slide Motorsports drivers, but this is exactly what Blocker needed. Is he's going to have to find a way past these drivers really quickly if he wants a nice solid top 10 here.
Welker's starting to have some technical issues which will potentially concern Van de Sant and Olsen behind him. In front of them, while they battle for sixth on back, Saunders has the bit between his teeth on the push to pass and looking to the outside into turn one on Connor Harrington. The fight to the podium, but get physical once more. This time it's Harrington that goes around. Porcelli will slide on through, but Saunders picks up third.
Oh my, it's all kicking off here, Arjuna. The new tires have upped the aggression level, and that is Graham Saunders well and truly in stamping authority there in the third place. Connor Harrington now on the back foot behind David Porcelli all the way in fifth place.
Second time today, the battle for the podium has seen contact change its complexion as they continue to brawl. Sixth on back, we look here. Harrington just trying to run and escort Saunders off the track. The Alpine Stars geodesic racing machine was having none of it. That reminds me of some racing that you'd see more in Formula One, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and to be honest, I have no problem with what Graham Sanders did there, because he still had position on Connor Harrington, even into that on the inside on that left-hander. As much as Harrington was trying to take that away from him and force him out there, it was Sanders' right to stay where he was, and I just don't think that Harrington really gave him enough room there.
So, 7th and 8th on the push to pass as they try and squeeze on past the 17 of Brody Garner, making a Monday night debut. Van de Sant still not able to work on Mitchell Welker, who, after swapping over to the primaries, has somewhat been pegged back. A slow stop for him, 13.3 seconds, means there was some damage done to that car in the contact with Hugo Olsen.
Yes, there was, but we haven't really talked about Brody Garner, but he's been doing a really solid job here in the sixth place. Yes, he's sort of the leader of this little trolley train that we got going on here, as we see actually a move from Mitchell Welker on Garner. Van de Sant gets very deep there, but Garner having none of it. Meanwhile, Adam Blocker waiting to pounce as well. But so far it's been really strong from that number 17 machine of Brody Gardner. He's been doing a great job just keeping his nose clean despite all the craziness that's going on around him.
Gap at the front up to 1.4. Phil Krause almost out of drafting range of the king of the bricks as Van de Sant almost sends it to the inside of Garner in the final corner. Bit of an accordion effect there as Mitchell Welker starts to stretch the legs. 7/10 clear of the 17 and building and building. Garner now defends from the feisty 15 of Alexander Van de Sant. Will pop out but doesn't have the momentum without a lunge to get to the inside of turn one. And by not going for it, in effect, what Van de Sant is doing is allowing his teammate of Adam Blocker to continue sizing him up for a move. Again, they almost stack up. Van de Sant looks a lot quicker and a lot more planted through the corners.
I think that's a case of Van de Sant's just very confident on the brakes right now. I think that Brody Garner, maybe a little bit less familiar with the IndyCar than Van de Sant is just not quite as confident into some of these corners on the brakes, and it's allowing Van de Sant to really close up, but it's also causing some confusion here as they get very close there through the switchback, and it's going to allow Adam Blocker a shot on the inside of both of them.
Blocker never needs another invitation. If you leave the door open, guess who will be knocking? It will be the number 2. Van de Sant passed by one power slide teammate. Olsen thought about a move as well as Bodeful will close in the Alpine Stars geodesic racing machine. Garner continues to check the field up, now 1.5 back from Mitchell Welker and building. That number 14 car, after a slow pit stop, finds himself some respite.
And Adam Blocker looking to the inside of Garner now. Push to pass for Adam Blocker, so this should be a fairly easy move for him. And in fact, Blocker does get on the brakes just that little bit later into turn one. Nice move by Adam Blocker, and now it's back to the battle between Garner and Van de Sant. And I think that this one could drag on for a few more laps yet.
See if maybe out of turn 4. Van der Sande can set something up a little bit tighter through the chicane. Now, does he have momentum? Blocker of note has used his first push to pass of the race to get past Brody Garner. Remarkable when you think about it. Adam Blocker has carved his way up 13 spots without relying on 70 extra horsepower to push him down these not unsubstantially in terms of length straights that we've got here. Jacob Oster as well as Austin Young fighting 14th and 15th, as looks like Austin Young and Oster might just have mixed themselves up with one another, unfortunately. Did also note that Hugo Olsen made a bit of a mess of the entry to pit lane. We'll see maybe if we can get a look at that at some point as well, because new pit lane entry, higher commitment in some ways, but maybe lower speed. It is always fascinating to think about the various differences that drivers are thinking about as they very much have to adapt as quick as they can. Let's go ahead and pick up what happened to Hugo Olsen then on the entry into the pit stop cycle. So this actually was a little bit earlier. I thought this was right as he was entering pit lane. Trying to go for a move, a little bit of desperation maybe showing there.
Yeah, and I think it was also just really old tires there. He misjudged the braking point with his teammate Brian Carey, and they did a good job not to get crossed up with each other, because it could have ended very badly for both of them. But definitely a slowdown penalty will be the result for Hugo Olsen there. And
of course, this was when we saw Olsen really struggling with rear traction, and the rear tires just always trying to step out on him. Michael Chayton, a big issue through the chicane, just using too much of the curbing, and that spat him wide. And then did Rodrigo Franzoni have the same thing happen to him? So, spin it back and look first at the 21. And now, as another car goes off at turn 3, Franzoni hooks himself on the inside curb. It's almost like that NASCAR race where they all died through the one corner.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you just how important rear grip is on this track now, particularly because of that now sort of point and squirt nature that we were talking about. That puts a lot of heat through those rear tires because of the load that you face under acceleration. So it makes just that much more important to have a solid rear end underneath the car. And I think some of these drivers just got a little bit caught out by the setup here today.
Adam Blocker has caught up to the back of Mitchell Welker. Blocker stopped 3 laps later than Welker, so 3 laps fresher. Alternate red mark tires, so that's going to be a crucial note as John Bodefer will squeak on through the Swede of Hugo Olsen, whose tough day will continue. Qualified up in 3rd, will finish at best, you'd assume, unless those around him on the red tires start to struggle, maybe outside of the top 10. And while the battle for the final step of the podium is a fun one, as Graham Sanders and David Porcelli trade lap times and push to passes back and forth, your race leading gap is up to now 2 full seconds. Once the draft was broken, Brandon Traynor was able to keep Phil Krause at arm's length.
Yeah, it's been a solid race and a solid second stint for for Brandon Traynor, but the battle, as you say, is right here. Graham Sanders all over the back of David Porcelli, and this is again one of those battles between two drivers on different compound tires as well. So Porcelli has done a real good job so far in this race, but Sanders, as this run goes on, he's going to start to have that advantage on those black primary tires, and you can really see Porcelli starting to suffer for some grip here.
Remember, around lap 9 was when the lap times for Traynor and Welker equalized between black and red compound of tires. David Porcelli working lap number 8 on his alternates. That's of note. Side by side, Welker now fights with Blocker, who got a bit squirrely as he tried the up and under. And even though they show as having different compounds of tires, we can confirm both of them, of course, are on the alternates. Adam Blocker from outside of the top 20 will look to slide his way through to 6th. Welker's got to look out behind. Garner and company are coming.
Yeah, they may have the same compound on their car right now, Arjuna, but there is a lap difference in terms of tires. Adam Blocker with, I believe, 3 or 4 laps fresher tires than that. Meanwhile, up at the front here, Graham Sanders really starting to put the pressure on David Porcelli, but Porcelli so far has been able to hold it, but Sanders not letting him go, now slots back into turn 3.
Porcelli is working hard right now to hold on. 10 laps to go. It's going to be a tall order. And the more that they fight, the more that Connor Harrington, also on the black primary tires, that should last to the end of the race a little bit better. the more he will close. The impetus is placed onto Graham Saunders in the number 1 car, our highest I rating in the field, to work his way through on a driver with real world racing experience to lean on in these open wheel machines. 2 seconds that gap back to Harrington. Saunders will be watching closely and making sure that Harrington is not presented with any sort of a door. Here's, of course, that fight behind Mitchell Welker. Brody Garner in the fun as well. Blocker starting to stretch his legs. Of course, he'll have the freshest tires of all of these cars. What a counter. Counter to the emotions that Blocker was feeling at the start of the race. It's really swapped around. I'm sorry, I have been all sorts of struggling with words. I'm just so excited, Andrew, about what this track really promises. I know it's a long way away till November. I'm so curious what the Open Wheels 500-mile race is going to bring for us as Van der Sande on the defense clips the back of Brody Garner, but it's the Powerslide Motorsports car that goes around.
Yeah, Van der Sande, I think he was trying to stay off the back of Garner there, and he put on a little bit too much brake, and it caused him to go around there, locking those rear tires again. And I will say that this track has promoted a lot closer racing than what we would see at the old configuration. You can just see Van der Sande, he was always getting into the corner just that little bit too deep there, and just all over the brakes trying to stop and just couldn't do it. Meanwhile, John Beaudefort trying to get around Brody Garner, but he's having the same issues that Van der Sande was in terms of being able to pass Garner. And I will say that Garner, he's been really difficult to pass, but he hasn't been really doing anything wrong. He's just been doing nice, solid defensive driving without doing too much blocking, so really solid drive for him. Yeah,
no, I agree. It's maybe the long run pace has struggled just because maybe not having a setup compared to some of these other cars who have the ability to work with teammates. It's been a good run, but now it might start to struggle even more. Beaudefort on the button, being forced to the outside once more. We've seen this a number of times, but if you're confident under the brakes, you can make it work. It gives you the inside for turn 2. It's what John Beaudefort has needed to get up to 8th. Brody Garner down to 9th.
Yeah, really nice move there from Beaudefort, just having the confidence in the car to keep it on the outside there. Meanwhile, Jacob Oster with a small mistake there through turn 1. And the 22 car, the last driver in this field, just struggling just a little bit. I think as this run goes on, the tires really starting to suffer, and it's the drivers who maybe don't have as much confidence on the road that it really starts to show what happens when these cars lose the grip on those tires.
Again, let's have a look. It's turn 1, and again, a bit too much speed as he tries to roll the weight a different direction. He goes around and then almost gets completely massacred, I would assume, by Austin Young or potentially Rashad Craig. Graham Saunders again, and this time on the inside of David Porcelli, far enough in front to commit, but might go a bit deep. Graham Saunders almost loses it into the grass, but will grab 3rd position away from David Porcelli. But now here comes Connor Harrington, 1 second away from a podium spot.
I was about to say, who's that lurking in the background there? It's that green and blue and teal car, Connor Harrington, and he is right in this fight once again after he had that altercation there with Graham Saunders not 10 laps ago. He is right back smack dab in the middle of this fight, and I think that he's got something to prove here now that he's back in drafting range.
He's got 5 push-to-passes left to use as well. Don't count him out of maybe even challenging Saunders, who's got 4. Porcelli just down to the 2 left to defend as we wind towards 6 to go at this time by. Weather conditions, of course, have been relatively stable. The cloud cover has meant that there's not been too many changes across the various parts of the track and how they are all playing out. Mitchell Welker, I've been seeing him push the issue. Just been running wide a couple of times, but being able to break away now. 2.5 clear of Beaudefort in 8th, who's, of course, got Garner, Olsen, Carey, and Van der Sande all looking behind him. Battle for 3rd sees Harrington now even closer. If you're Graham Saunders, you've clearly got to try and pull away. Would it be worth sacrificing some of the push-to-passes if you're that number 1 car, Andrew?
No, I don't think so. I think what you do if you're Graham Sanders is you're coming up to 4 to go here pretty quickly. Once you get to 4 to go, you have 4 pushes left. You just use one on the front straightaway each time, and given the advantage that you have on tires over David Porcelli, that should be enough to keep him at bay. The question will be what happens if Connor Harrington can get around David Porcelli in the next lap or so, and if Porcelli keeps going deep into these corners, it might Connor Harrington might be able to get around sooner rather than later. So that's where you start to have to get a little bit more antsy if you're Graham Sanders, if Harrington gets around Porcelli. But Harrington surprisingly not on the button again.
But he is making David Porcelli burn a push to pass. Now, is that going to hamper the defensive efforts of the New Jersey native? Hugo Olsen in front of Brody Garner, who's now just hanging on to the top 10. We'll see the Canadian Brian Carey trying to place the pressure onto him. Garner's going to go on the offense, though, and try and switcheroo potentially on Hugo Olsen. Will be alongside, but the Swede able to cover off just enough. Again, though, Olsen loose at the rear end, hanging on with all he can. Olsen up to 9th. Mitchell Welker's got around, maybe damaged his car as well. From looking locked on for 7th, he drops out of the top 10.
Yeah, that was a big moment through that turn 4 complex there for Welker, and Brian Carey does get around him as well. As we come to blows, it's Garner and Hugo Olsen.
And Hugo Olsen, I think, has just absolutely murdered Mitchell Welker. There's no nice way to put it. That is one of the worst rejoins I think I've ever seen here on RaceSpotTV. It unfortunately does not get much worse than that. We will look at the entire cycle of fighting, but right now the focus is on the battle for 4th as Connor Harrington tries to get past the VRS satellite racing machine of David Porcelli and look forward in the battle for the final step of the podium. The private label Team Hype car doesn't make a mistake under brakes. Porcelli tries to fight back. Harrington to 4th.
Yeah, Porcelli not letting it go easy, though. He's trying to fight back around the outside here. We've seen it come to blows once, and Porcelli does finally get back behind Connor Harrington. But what that fighting just did there was it did allow Sanders to get maybe another half a second out in front of Connor Harrington. So that's really cost Harrington a better shot at Graham Sanders here. So he's going to be using all the push to pass he can to try and get back onto the back of that one car for 3rd.
So with just a couple of laps to go, let's go and cycle through the replays of the moment. So it looks like Welker got the left side onto the grass. Does a good job to control it. The Alpine Stars geodesic machine gives him enough gap to then slow down and point it back straight and get going, but it's in front of him where the drama is going to develop as Brody Garner and Hugo Olsen went side by side in towards the left-hand 90 at the end of the back straightaway. I will retract what I said. I don't know if Hugo really had much control over how he was spinning, but the reality is Mitchell Welker, the one that was caught up, nothing he could do, one mistake of his own lands him in the danger zone.
Yeah, and it was just unfortunate there for Welker because it really was just a mistake that happened earlier in the lap that put him in the position, as you say, and it was a bit of an optimistic move, but Garner was there. It just he wasn't quite able to slow down in time and gets into the back of Hugo Olsen, and then yeah, Hugo, I think he tried to stay off of the grass is what he was trying to do, but unfortunately in doing so, he just lit up the rear tires and continued spinning probably when he should have just been on the brakes at that point.
Yeah, the reason I thought it was a rejoin was because the rear tires didn't just look like they were left free. It looked like there was drive still going through them as the smoke was thrown into the air, almost Romain Grosjean at Spain in 2018 or 19. That's what that reminded me of. Again, of all the people that take any sort of responsibility, Welker takes none of it. A good drive comes to an end, but again, some good performances from that number 14 car. They very much will be looking to build on. Podium seems set. Of course, Traynor and Krause have continued to separate themselves. 4 seconds splits 1st and 2nd. Graham Sanders still enjoys a 1.6 second lead over the chasing Connor Harrington. So with 2 laps to go, time is running out for the private label Team Hype car. I think Harrington is going to be stuck in 4th when we get to the checkered.
Yeah, everything's starting to look settled down, but I think it says a lot about this racetrack and how competitive we've seen this race here today, that it's taken 39 laps for things to actually become settled down. We've seen battling throughout the field today, and it's been a thrilling race here, Arjuna.
Yeah, still fighting going on. It's just that we're trying not to look at it in the hopes that us not looking at it means that it goes cleanly. It's Kevin Birrell in the third of the Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing Machines. Austin Young in that number 5, battling for the final spot in the top 10. Birrell will see the move to the inside, not fought hard, as the red and black car allows the black and gold to slide on through in the second sector of the lap. Brandon Traino working through the push-to-passes onto the final lap of the race. He's had to fight for this one, don't get us confused, but it's never looked like he's been feeling the pressure. He's looked comfortable with the setup he's had today.
Yeah, and certainly he's looked much stronger on these black primary tires than he did on those red alternates. With the red alternates on, Kraus looked like he had the measure Traino, but as soon as he strapped those black tires onto that car, that number 7 machine was just gone, and he has put on a clinic here in this second half of this race. A really strong drive from Brandon Traino.
And Andrew, I mean, got half a lap to go. First experience of this road course in the virtual world. What are your thoughts as we've watched 40 laps of racing, chaos, and everything in between?
I think it's a categorical success here. There was such close action. Everybody was so packed up for so long there. There was all sorts of opportunities to pass. There were people making mistakes, pushing too hard. It's everything that you want in a race and in a broadcast. So I think really strong debut for the Indy road course.
The new generation of the iRacing IndyCar racing action sees a new Indianapolis, but a familiar winner. Brandon Traino wins once more in Indianapolis, wins once more in the iRacing IndyCar Open Series. 5 full seconds clear of Philip Kraus. What a treat we're in for the rest of 2022 as fans around the world get to experience the latest iteration of this historic configuration. And of course, it builds up to the month of November here live on RaceSpotTV, when we'll go racing for the 3rd annual Open Wheels 500-mile race. Plenty more passing opportunities presented, and of course, if this race was any indication, if what we saw in 2021 was any indication, this weekend's doubleheader as NASCAR and IndyCar head to the Brickyard is bound to be full of drama. Brandon Traino 5 seconds clear. Graham Saunders picks up the final step of the podium. Give a shout out to Blocker, Bodefor, and Van der Sande, all able to work their way up double-digit positions after starting at the back. Limited setup preparation for this race, Andrew, but there's a week's worth of racing still to go, and these teams, these drivers will dial in as we build through plenty more action to come this week.
Absolutely. I might have to just get back behind the wheel and get out there myself and try this place out, because it looks like a lot of fun, Arjuna. But today it was all about Brandon Traino leading nearly wire to wire and just putting on a clinic in that second half. Great drive and another championship-worthy performance for Brandon Traino.
And he will burn it down once more. It's a familiar sight. Brandon Traino celebrating in Victory Lane here in Speedway, Indiana. So 40 laps of racing. It's the first marker that we'll see of this new configuration of the Indianapolis road course, but it is Brandon Traino that picks up where he left off. 2 weeks after being deprived of the pole, Traino started at the front and finished on top. 5 seconds clear of the private label team hype, returning Philip Kraus. Graham Saunders makes up the rest of the podium places. Connor Harrington pushes past David Porcelli in the closing laps, but unable to reel on in the Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing number 1. He finishes 4th where he started. David Porcelli, the contra strategy, gained him a couple of spots. He finishes inside of the top 5. Adam Blocker, one of 3 that did not put in a qualifying lap time, was able to work his way forward 14 positions along with John Bodefor to finish 6th and 7th. Brian Carey, a quiet race across the line in 8th. Alexander Van der Sande was embroiled in some fighting. He finishes 9th in front of Austin Young, while Kevin Birrell in the black and red car for the number 9 down 11th. Brody Garner bullied down to 12th in those final 7 laps of racing. Rashad Craig, Jacob Oster, and Vilda Wallen make up the top 15, with Jack Mara, Zachary Hubler, and Hugo Olsen behind them. Hubler and Olsen, the first cars not to make it across the line on the lead lap, with Welker and Chayton, Franzoni and Kopke, all of the cars involved in drama here today. Plenty of cars making mistakes, being involved in contact. We had it all across of our racing here today. We're still waiting for Victory Lane to be populated to chat to our podium sitters after the 40 laps of racing. But Andrew, let's look forward. Let's look forward to a race that maybe not many are really expecting much of. 7 days from now, we will go to Charlotte, North Carolina, and the Charlotte Motor Speedway to kick off August, to kick off our run to the championship. It's a difficult place to set up a car. It's a difficult place to race a car. And our drivers next week have got to figure out both if they want to end up on top.
IndyCar goes straight into the heart of NASCAR country in 1 week's time, Arjuna, and as you say, it's a difficult challenge. These cars not necessarily married well with this track and the configuration just because of, again, certain characteristics of the track. It's got fairly steep drop-offs on the corner exits that makes the car want to sort of dart towards the inside, really upsets the rear of the car. So you have to really compromise on the setups, and it's a very difficult place to set up an IndyCar. But at the same time, what we've always seen with this series throughout the time that we've broadcast them is that these drivers seem to step up even when we have doubts about how well that a place is going to race. They seem to come through with an excellent race. So I expect nothing less from the drivers of the Indy Open series here.
It'll be 133 laps at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. After that, of course, a visit to the West Coast and wine country, Sonoma, and then, of course, to the shadow of the Gateway Arch, the Worldwide Technology Raceway, to the Tricky Triangle, and then to upstate New York, 29 laps at Watkins Glen to close out this 2022 Season 3 on the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship here live on RaceSpotTV. Straggling drivers, we'll give it a couple more moments as we await them to join us up here in our RaceSpotTV commentary booth. Let's bring in your winner. Let's bring in the king of the bricks, Brandon Traino. Brandon, it's a brand new Indianapolis, but it's a familiar winner. Talk to us about this new configuration and how it raced here tonight.
Yeah, it was fun. The new configuration's cool. I like it a lot. The reprofile S's is really helpful. The old scan that we had of the track didn't have a lot of grip, and this one kind of still doesn't, but it's definitely a lot better. It flows a lot better, and yeah, I can run my downforce like I want to and not get drugged down the straightaways.
It leads me to the next question. Was that first stint with Phil Krause all over you? It did seem as though he was able to stick a lot closer than he was in the second, but never really a major opportunity to get the move actually done. Talk to us about how the racing went and the downforce balance, how you thought through it.
Yeah, I think we were pretty much the same downforce level. I might have been a little bit lighter, which is why he was better through the S's. But yeah, I was really aggressive on defending. Him and I obviously have come to blows a couple times, and yeah, there's really no feelings towards that. So he had a couple dives, I had a couple dives, and in my opinion, it is what it is. But yeah, you know, hard racing, and I didn't mean to force him off in the grass, but it's really kind of what I needed to just broke the draft and just pull away from there.
So, of course, new road course, but the one that we're all waiting for is that oval. How much are you guys going to be able to take away from what we've got here today as we wait for maybe a couple more weeks and the release of this newest Indianapolis Motor Speedway and all the configurations here on iRacing?
Yeah, I'm excited to see the oval when it comes out. Hopefully the racing has kind of changed where it's really tough to pass the inside if there's cars in front of you. Maybe it's realistic where you want to fight for the bottom, and the top won't be the way to defend all the time. So we'll have to see. This road course is a plus. It's cool that they finally added it, and yeah, we'll just wait for the oval here.
Brandon Traino on top once more after a couple of weeks of success. Great to talk to him as always today. Let's step to the second step of our podium where Phil Krause returns on a Monday night and finishes in second. Phil, I guess there was a reason we saw you tonight. Let's talk about this new configuration. Talk to us about your race and how difficult it was to get past the leader.
Yeah, new layout obviously. It's really fun to drive, but yeah, going to the race, it's a hard track to overtake because most of the overtaking zones, like especially turn 1, which is the main overtaking zone, it's a chicane, so usually when you try to send something up there, they're able to cover the inside and they can just push you off the road, and that happened a few times with Brandon, and then down the back of the drag strip, same thing happened, but it was definitely on the limit, I'd say, of what's legal, but I don't know if it was legal or illegal. I haven't looked at the replay to see, but yeah, it was a really fun race, and then I just broke my front wing on his rear end like an idiot, so, you know, I deserve second at the end of the day just because I made that mistake.
was going to answer my second question, which was what happened to you that saw you slip backwards very slightly. As you now, take this forward, been a great season, of course, for you in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. Not much has changed with this car in the last couple of weeks, but maybe that's coming up in the future. What have you been doing this summer? What more will we see from you this fall as we get to the start of another iRacing endurance season?
I don't know. Probably mostly Lionheart. We're toying with the idea of running an IVRA, Connor, Josh Chin, and Tommy. We'll see if we end up running that, but looking forward to it, see what happens in the future.
Maybe you'll learn that it's actually called Ivra at some point. Phil Krause joins us, second step of the podium. Always great to have Phil join us after the race as well. Now to the final step. Graham Saunders was made to fight for that one, but able to work past David Porcelli, able to hold off Connor Harrington. Graham, interesting race for you there. Talk to us about what you saw.
Yeah, that was a really, really difficult race. I was struggling a lot in practice. I think I went maybe 8 or 9 laps without wrecking the car. So I'm really, really happy with the podium. First of all, a massive good job to Brandon Trano on the win. Really unfortunate what happened with Connor and I. I mean, I was pushed out really wide. I was on throttle a little bit, and then once I hit the grass, I kind of lost the tires a little bit and went into him. I kind of thought it was a racing deal. He thought otherwise, but we'll move on.
We know you like your road course racing. What are your thoughts about this configuration? Of course, maybe you've not been waiting for this to come to iRacing as much as maybe some of our IndyCar diehards, but I know it's one that even road course racers are looking at because of its place in endurance racing.
No, for sure. Yeah, I think I'm really excited to see this track in the Ivra schedules. Hopefully I don't think it's on there right now, but hopefully they'll kind of change it up a little bit. I think this track's really wide. It's really good for multi-class. It's really fun. Really fun.
We've been seeing your teammate John Bodefer in a number of ovals. What do we have to do? What do we have to do to get you to join him on a Monday night?
I think I need more confidence. I think next week is it at Sonoma? Is that right?
Charlotte. No. It's even worse.
Oh, Charlotte. Oh boy. Okay. Well, I was gonna say I'd be there next week, but I might be there next week. But whenever we're at Sonoma, I will for sure be there. I love that track. Really, really challenging. Lots of blind corners and a bunch of spots to pass. So I'm excited.
Underrated track for sure. Thanks for joining us, Graham. Congratulations on your third.
Thank you very much, Arjuna. Appreciate it.
Always good to chat to our podium winners, and we won't dawdle too much longer. We'll have one final look at the schedule before we say goodbye. We talked about Charlotte at the start of the show. Let's focus on the others as we say goodbye. Graham brought up Sonoma, so I'll bring it up as well, Andrew. It's a underrated track. Not many people really like it, appreciate it, but IndyCar went there for many a year before, of course, they changed their venue of the West Coast Showdown to the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. But Sonoma is flowing, it's technical, it's challenging, and in IndyCar, it's a thrill.
It is, and I will say this, for me with Sonoma, it's not necessarily that I dislike the driving there because it's a tremendous track to drive. For me, the racing has never been one of the more competitive road courses, but we do have the more updated IndyCar version of Sonoma now, and that has made it much better from when we had the old style setup where it was the old 2005 layout. So that is definitely a benefit to Sonoma. Meanwhile, Gateway and Pocono and Watkins Glen, some really strong ovals and a classic American road course to finish off this schedule.
What a schedule it is, and of course voting for Season 4 is well and truly underway as this series moves to a new schedule structure. No more 6-6 oval and road courses, 7 road courses and 5 ovals, mirroring the trend that we're seeing in the real world. It's just one of many changes that the iRacing IndyCar community has been thinking about for a while, but today saw the start of the next generation, a new Indianapolis available on iRacing. The road course got its debut today. When will we see the oval? Drivers are waiting for that day. It's a busy week on RaceSpotTV with plenty to get your attention. So across the 15 broadcasts we've got, make sure to join us and stay subscribed, and to make sure you're following us on social media, because every day there's a race for you on RaceSpotTV. For now though, we bid you farewell from the Speedway. On behalf of Andrew Kinsella and myself, Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to have your company as we debut this Indianapolis configuration to you all. What a treat it was, what a show it put on. Brandon Trainer on top once more in front of Philip Kraus. We'll see you next time though from Charlotte when tempers are bound to flare. For now though, so long and goodbye. Enjoy the rest of your iRacing week.